All right, we are now live. Welcome to the Lost Cryptids Conservatory's live show. My guest today is Phil Shaw. He's from Michigan. And, well, let's start off with what got you started Bigfooting.
Okay.
So go ahead and start.
Alrighty. In 2006, June, my wife and I were taking a trip out east, visit Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island. And we were going through lower New Brunswick. And there were a lot of trees there, but there was an opening in the trees. We're on a 4-lane highway. But as we went by this opening in the trees, we saw somebody walking. And it didn't look human. At least we couldn't see any hat, white face, blue jeans, anything sort of normal about a human. My wife had a funny walk to it. And I guess it was after that I started researching it. Actually, I think one of my first things that I did was there was an ad in the Detroit Free Press about a expedition in the UP by the BFRO, and I enlisted 2 of my sons and a brother to go up there on this expedition. And we had a good time, but I didn't know my sons were doing what I call a mockumentary of the Bigfoot search. But they did this. It's in 2 parts on YouTube. It's called the Shaw Bigfoot Project. It's fairly humorous, and but I started studying and reading books and stuff, and if they hadn't have done that, I'm not sure I would have continued with it. But most people think it's a joke, so it doesn't hurt to joke about it. But that video actually created an in for me to talk to people about it, and I used to use quite a bit of it. Anymore, I have so much material, I don't as much as I used to. But we come back from New Brunswick on our trip, and we told people we'd seen a Bigfoot. And our sons, they said, you must have seen a Bigfoot because you never agree on anything else. Which isn't sort of typical of married couples, I guess. We've been married 50 years last August, but
wow, congratulations.
Well, thank you. But anyhow, that's how I got started. I started going to conferences and expeditions. I went to several of the BFRO and in several states on the expeditions and conferences, and then basically started just looking around here. I started seeing some of the BFR reports right here, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money going to the West Coast where everybody thinks they are at.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, I'm up to 116 incidents right around here, which I find remarkable, although I do believe West Branch, we're about 150 miles north of Detroit, northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula are both very squatchy type areas. We have lots of lakes, lots of swamp, and lots of woods with a little bit of farmland in between here and there.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So we definitely got the habitat for Bigfoot, in my opinion. And to have accumulated just in 6 counties this many reports, and I'm constantly working on new ones. I'm meeting a fellow tomorrow. He and his brother had vocalizations about 3 years ago while they're turkey hunting that they said they never heard such a thing, and I'm going to have them listen to some CDs, tapes of the Sierra sounds and whatnot. But about half of my incidents are not sightings. They're footprints, structures, vocalizations, property damage, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's all significant, even though it's all very subjective, but so are sightings. You could be seeing a bear, but I think actually I found 2 structures this fall which, you can take pictures of them. I'll show you some of those. We have time. It's really,
Yeah, of course.
I'm just intrigued to find something in the woods that I think is non-human. So.
Yeah, exactly. It is always exciting. And
Oh, it is. I in both cases, I looked at it and I says, this has got to be natural windfall. And then more I think about it, I said, there's no way that fell out of the tree like that type of thing. And go back and look at it harder and harder.
yeah,
But I think they do this kind of thing just to rattle our cages, just to say they're there.
is that what you think about the tree structures?
I really don't think, in my experience, I don't find that many. I've only found, I think it's about 7 or 8 in 12 years. And my favorite time of year is the fall. I small game hunt and I deer hunt.
Oh yeah,
in fact, in both of these events, one was during small game hunting and the other one was deer hunting. And I don't find multiple, but at the same time, around this area, we've had multiple. When the map I have of the 6 counties, they're all over. That is, the incidents. They just seem to be all over. So.
Yeah, I have a few pictures of tree structures, and it's real easy to just take pictures of random stuff and say it's a tree structure.
Right.
That's why, in my experience, I always try to find the best details of this can't be nature. It couldn't have fell there.
Yeah. I get pretty skeptical on X's, I guess, and maybe some people don't like that. I like to have multiple branches, logs, to really add, strength and how could they do this? Just a couple of trees falling across each other. A lot of wind. Wind can do a lot.
Exactly. Most of the time, I dismiss a lot of tree structures just because you can't. It's too easy to say it's nature. Right. While there's other ones where I actually found a structure where there was a pine branch in it and there was no pine trees for a couple hundred yards.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So there's little indications like that, and I found other ones where they wrapped up some vines in it and stuck a branch through it.
We've had a major die off of ash trees here. They got the beetle
bug,
and we just got dead trees falling all over the place. So you got to be careful when you're talking X's because there's a ton of X's in our woods.
Yeah, I mean, I walk in the woods all the time, and I honestly, you could just start snapping pictures and start saying the tree structure.
Right.
But
right.
You need a little bit more evidence and actually details of why you think it's not nature related.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And up in West Branch, I went to the conference there in what was it, in May or April?
We had one in April. We had one in September.
Yeah, I went to the one in April, and I was in Roscommon, but that whole area going from there to West Branch, I mean, it's some dense woods,
We got a lot of swamp. All the way from actually Saginaw or Standish, all the way to the bridge is a lot of swamp.
That's right.
I really think there are some areas there where there hasn't been a deer hunter or a trapper in there or anybody, and some of that for years,
Oh, I can guarantee that. I mean, the place I camped out, I mean, you needed a 4x4 to get back there, honestly. And I didn't see anyone when I camped there.
Yeah.
So, do you have any, when you went on these expeditions for the BFRO, did you have any encounters? Anything happen?
Actually, it didn't really. The first one we went to, there was a fellow from, and I forget his name, from Wisconsin that had a night vision, or it was a heat imaging. I don't remember his name. It seemed like his name was Don, and he wasn't camped too far from us. But I didn't really. The one in Arkansas, we did walk by where it was a tree structure. There was 3 or 4 trees, substantial trees, all leaned together. They didn't fall out of the ground there. And I didn't remember to take my camera. And I asked a friend to send me pictures, and I never got them. So, I mean, that was significant, I thought, to take 6-inch trees that are 20 or 30 foot long and stack them together.
Oh yeah.
That's a pretty strong animal to do that, and certainly no evidence. Why would a human bring their high-low or their fork truck in here to stack trees, So
yeah, it makes no sense.
Probably the closest, although that one campground we had a pretty good storm, and I thought maybe some rocks were thrown at us. There was a little bit of that. I forget exactly what state that was in, but nothing real significant.
Do you think that's because usually those expeditions has a lot of people going?
I think the more people you get, the less activity you're likely going to get. Now,
Right.
I've been on 3 of the Kentucky expeditions with Charlie Raymond, and he does a good job with dividing the groups and trying to get everybody to document if they do wood knocks and whatnot. It's really good. He does a good job of that. And I had a wood knock on one of those, and 2 years ago, I think we got a tape of a Bigfoot. It was about 7 minutes long. And some analysts wanted to say it was coy dog, but I still think it was too deep for any kind of dog. It was too much like a mad ape, in my opinion.
Right.
And I got about 7 minutes recording of that. So that
Coyotes kind of, they do it's always like a routine yipping sounds, and
yeah,
it's pretty easy to tell. Like they kind of do a certain set of sounds, and
this, like I said, this really sounded like a mad ape, and there's a big difference between a big ape and a coyote. So,
yeah. So, up where you're at, you have a lot of sightings reported and stuff. Do you think there's a trying to think here. Do you think there's people are seeing? I'm trying to. It's a big area, and there's a lot of Sasquatches for them to hide. So, the reports you get, what are the Sasquatches doing for people to see them?
Usually walking, looking. One of the best descriptions I had of a fellow over here to Hale. That's about 25 miles away. He and his brother were in the back seat of the car. They were going on the state highway M33, and there was a low drainage area over to the left. And he and his brother both saw this humanoid, Bigfoot walking. And he said that thing was walking just like somebody got out of prison. He was looking from side to side, big long arms, and I thought that was really an interesting comparison. That
yeah, I've never heard that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, he was walking along the edge of that swamp area, and he was making an effort to look for people, probably not recognizing people in the cars, maybe, but.
I never know.
They do a variety of things.
Obviously they're pretty intelligent, but there's also times where they walk out in front of cars and stuff. Do you have any idea why that might be?
I really don't. I guess I'm inclined to believe, and I know there's certainly controversy, the Melba Ketchum studies that would indicate that the female genome was 100% human, and the male genome unknown primate. I'm inclined to think that's the case. And then I connect it even to the Bible, which is I've attended the Methodist Church for years, and we're going to have Janice Carter here from 50 Years of Bigfoot. And it was because of her grandpa's belief, and quite a strong religious person, that they're actually related to Esau and the Edomites of the Bible.
I have read that, and
it's a spitting image. You'd read that description. And,
he tricks his father by Jacob tricks his father by putting goat fur on him. So when he feels him, he feels like his brother.
Right. And on top of that, Rebecca, the mother, was told she would be the mother of 2 nations. Well, That's almost
Yep.
ridiculous. You look at the human race, we've had literally hundreds of nations, particularly if you watch the Ancient Aliens show, which I find rather intriguing.
Oh yeah, all that stuff is
Oh,
very intriguing.
there's a lot of stuff around the world that, you know,
It's all that ancient mysteries, and
prior to our biblical times that we'd like to think, 6,000 years. A lot of that's prior to that, I think. And so, yeah, she was told she'd be the mother of two nations. And when you go on and Esau's all red hair and a man of the field, and Jacob was smooth skinned like us guys. And that's, I think, the whole description. And then he was told that he couldn't have his blessing because he didn't have any more blessing from Isaac, and he was going to live by the sword, and he was going to not have the blessings of the earth. And when I think if I didn't have my coffee and my apple pie and a warm house, if I had to live in a hole in the ground, I think I would feel that way.
Right. Yeah. Another description was he was a great hunter.
Yeah.
And the reason why he lost his blessing is because he came back for a trip and was very famished.
Right.
And Jacob made him give up his blessings for
gave away his birthright, actually. Yep.
Yes. Yep. For nourishment.
For soup. Yep.
Now, you said do you think they live in holes and stuff? Where do you think they're going in the swamp up there?
Well, I'm inclined. I read a book called The Wild Man of Europe, and then I've also been reading some books. A fellow in Oregon was wrote a lot of information there from Oregon, and they found evidence of caves. But the Wild Man book from Europe, they said that they actually live in the undercuts of rivers. Well, these are very good swimmers. Yeah, they're very good swimmers. Why couldn't they go up under the undercut like an otter? Not so much beaver because they build houses. But,
I get what you're saying, and tunnel out a big area for them.
Up in there, build a nest, or put in a bunch of vegetation to stay dry. And I think the potential of underground. When you look, I read a book here recently on underground habitation by humans. You realize most cities have 5 or 6 levels of tunnels for communication and subways and all kinds. It's just amazing. You can go from some of these big cities. You can go from one end to the other underground, and the average temperature underground is like 50 degrees. That's a big difference between.
Yeah.
From 20 degrees below here, where we're really quite cold. It's very miserable. So.
Yeah, it's its own climate controlled system because in summer it stays cold and then it's warm in winter.
Yep.
Yeah,
so that's my conclusion. I think they do somehow. In fact, here in Michigan, we got some hills, and they could easily go into a side hill and camouflage their openings. Thing that's been interesting, I've read, in fact, had accounts where there'd be underground noises, like humming and stuff like that. Are they connected to UFOs? Why would they be making those kind of noises? The potential is there.
Yeah, I think so. I've always I'm in Lower Michigan, and most of my research is from there. And
are you? Yeah.
There's a lot of reports down here, and I've had my own encounters.
Sure.
But we don't really have cave systems or hills or anything, but there are a lot of waters, so that would explain how where they go. Otherwise, they're just laying on the ground behind a tree.
Well, 2 years ago, we had 2 reported encounters on the southeast edge of West Branch. Of course, West Branch isn't a very big city; it's about 2,000 people. But my take on these were both in November. And I sort of wonder if they sort of got caught in the city trying to go around the city, and they might have been headed north to get to the deep snow. Because you take, if you got a 2 foot of snow or several foot of snow and a bog, a lot of these bogs will have 3, 4, 5 foot of brush. And, if you put 2 foot of snow on top of that bog, you could be quite warm, actually. In fact, I
Yeah.
do a lot of fishing with a friend. He was in the military, um, and skiing patrol, and they actually could dig a hole in the snowbank, and you'd be quite comfortable. You had to,
Sort of like a igloo type
yeah,
shelter.
you dig a hole, and you have to learn how to, keep your feet warm and not get wet.
Yep.
But that was an easy or a thing they did just with snow. So,
Yeah, and that makes sense.
yep.
Um, yeah, I know. There's some reports of missing people up there too. Do you think Sasquatch might have played a role in some of those?
I always, I think there is way too many missing people. I've read David Pilates' books about missing people, and of course, Sheboygan up here is one area that has higher than normal missing people, and it's a very swampy, wet area. When you put that together with the Indian beliefs that these animals are cannibals, I think it's very possible. Um, I tried to get Kathy Strain to come to our conference in April, and she's having surgery, so she couldn't make. But she wrote the book, Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters, or something like that. But she interviewed 57 different Indian tribes, and they all said the Bigfoot was a cannibals. So
Yeah, there's a lot of stories of them going to war with each other,
yeah,
kidnapping women and kids.
that's right.
I've heard one story where the natives used to trade with them and make baskets for them, and they
Sure.
ended up stealing kids. So they
Yeah.
stopped teaching them how to make baskets, and they eventually lost that skill.
Yeah.
Apparently.
One of the things that people think of Bigfoot as having big feet, which they do, but I think they also have very big hands. And when
Oh
you,
yeah.
and when you think about that, we have relatively small hands, and we can do a lot of fine motor type control, making weapons, and that kind of thing. That a Bigfoot, they'd have a heck of a time if you had a hand that's, a foot.
Yeah, that's right. They wouldn't be able to.
Fingers. First of all, they don't need to because they got the hair and they can stay warm.
Yeah.
But I think they couldn't develop the weapons that the humans could, and so that's how we outfox them or whatever. We could make a lot
Right.
better weapons of war than they could, spears and
Yep.
arrows.
Bows and arrows and.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you think? There are considered cannibals and stuff, while other tribes said that were more or less more friendly. I guess each tribe had different stories about them. I've heard an old story from, I think, Alaska or somewhere in Canada where an old lady found one who was hurt, and she nursed him back, and he said that every full moon he would meet up at the place where she rescued him, and he would leave her deer and other food.
Mm-hmm.
And he said when he stopped leaving stuff, then she would know that he had passed, and eventually he had stopped bringing stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
I think they could be just like humans. We got people that are really good people, but we also got people that belong in prison, which hopefully is where they are if they're that kind of people. So
yeah.
but also they could be like lions too. If they get old and their teeth and whatnot doesn't work
easy
so
prey.
well. Humans pretty slow animal to grab compared to a deer, and
Yep.
maybe it's similar to lions. The old ones get desperate, get hungry.
I think that could be too.
Mhm.
Honestly, humans are very easy targets for a lot of animals.
We are not fast.
No, we're not fast. We're not thick-skinned. We're pretty easy prey if you think about it.
And particularly, you take kids and women. Of course, they're pretty fast too. But I mean, compared to men, but many times, but still, compared to a deer, we would be easy to catch. Yeah.
Now, I think that it seems like most of the time Sasquatches don't hurt people, they don't kidnap people, and they just try to scare them away.
I would
while
agree. Mhm.
there's hot spots of missing people and more aggressive tendencies from these.
Mhm.
It's my opinion that uh, like here in Lower Michigan, we don't have really many missing people that are suspected by Bigfoot, and I think that's because when they used to kidnap the natives, uh, they would go to war and hunt them down. And I think in modern times they don't want the extra heat of people coming into the area with guns and searching for them. While
It went
the
through the.
ones
Mhm.
while the ones who have kidnapped people, maybe they think it's okay because they've gotten away with it. So it's a learned behavior. They can get away with it.
Little town north of us here, Cummins, used to have the Bigfoot Bash, and I participated in that several years. And one year they had an American Indian, it was like a Midwest Indian tribe representation, and they had a booklet of the lifestyles of the Indians of the Midwest. And one of the things, we used to have a lot more swamp. We drained so much of it anymore. But one of the major food stuffs of the Indian was wild rice. And the women and the kids would take their canoes and go into the uh, bogs, when the rice was ripe and shake the heads into the canoes. Well, I think they were actually going into the living room of the Bigfoot when they did that. So they were much more accessible than, most of us stay in the city most of the time. And so we're not,
Right.
getting to be less hunters actually, although the hunters generally got guns. So that's quite a bit of defense. I think
Yep.
those women and children were really vulnerable in that situation.
Do if they are people and they have an intelligence, why do you think they would eat us compared to if they were more animalistic? I mean, it's an opportunity for them, and if they're more
Well,
primal, then
I hate to remind you, but there's certainly, South islands where humans were cannibals.
oh yeah, yeah,
It's not not a new thing, unfortunately. It's certainly frowned on in our society, but there's been cases where the the people, I forget their names now, that they think they were cannibalistic. They got caught in the mountains there, the Mormons, and turned to cannibalism just to survive. And
right.
so it's not something that's accepted in our society, but it can happen, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, technically we are. I guess it would be a different species, so they might consider us a food source if need
Well, I
be.
think we might be fairly good eating because we don't have
Yeah,
hair to get by. Like a deer has got a lot of hair. We're hairless more or less, so that makes quite a difference. And
that's right. And there's
have a mouthful of
chimpanzees
hair.
that eat little monkeys.
Oh yeah,
So
sure. Oh, you take yeah, they're pretty nasty critters.
yes, chimpanzees are actually pretty vicious.
They're very vicious. I love to watch that orangutan island that was on for a while because to me it was like watching my grandkids, my younger grandkids, because they're so humanoid, They're
Oh
uh,
yeah.
but the orangutans seem to have a much more gentle attitude than the chimpanzee. Uh, the,
Oh
chim-
yeah, by far.
the chimpanzee has the canine teeth and they're meat eaters, whereas the orangutans were more of the vegetarians, like most apes are vegetarian.
Yep. Yep. And they're all very smart. They
Oh,
chimpanzees have been they've witnessed chimpanzees forming groups of gangs and going after people and strategically
yeah,
going on raids and
yeah,
going
hmm,
to war actually.
sure, yeah,
So um, you guys having another Bigfoot conference coming
yeah,
up this
yeah.
year?
We have a schedule for April 18th, and then we got really good speakers lined up. We have Ron Moorhead with the Sierra
Awesome.
Sound. He's coming, and we have Janice Carter, 50 years of Bigfoot, and we have Eric Altman. He's from Pennsylvania. So they'll both be speaking a couple of times during the day. And yeah, our committee, we just had a meeting this week, and we're really excited about these speakers. We think these people have got some great experiences to share with us. I'm just finishing Ron's book, Voices in the Wilderness, and that's quite interesting in itself. Going up into the high Sierras. I think it was the first trip he went up in. His horse slipped, and they fell down to the next level. It's the one where they both didn't have break legs and stuff, and so interesting stuff.
Do you plan on having a second conference this year?
I think we probably will. I forgot to pull out, but the local Chamber of Commerce had suggested I do a fact sheet, which I did, and then it was accepted by the Michigan Tourist Bureau, but they required we have 2 meetings, and so we did. We did have an April, and we had a September meeting. That's got last year's dates on it, and if they will allow us to just change the dates, I'm sure we'll plan on having a September meeting as well, because it's worth it.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a very well done fact sheet. We had a lot of input from various Bigfoot researchers, and of course, as you know, Blake, West Branch is the Bigfoot capital of Michigan. So
it is.
So yes,
and you helped get that done.
Yeah, it wasn't my idea. The local chamber had actually had the idea, but I went to one of their meetings. They suggested we should do that because I think basically my research, of course, and we took to city council and they approved it. So I'd like to see our community do a lot more with it than we are so far, but we're working on that part of it.
It's going to take time. I think with the conferences, I'm sure you're going to get more people coming each and every year. And
well, I think
it's going to grow. It's going to grow.
It's amazing. Each of these conferences, we had an art and wine walk here a couple weeks ago, and I was able to set up a booth at one of the stores, and here I get 3 or 4 more reports, and turns out there's a teacher over here to Hale that has a Sasquatch club, and it's really, every time you sit and talk to people, you find somebody else has had some experiences, and it's just so interesting to listen to their stories.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I always ask people, hey, you ever encountered Bigfoot or anything? And I've gotten some good looks, but I've actually got some good stories from it too.
I think if you're fairly benign, and 70% of the people look embarrassed for us, but we're not embarrassed. We know what we're doing, but you can tell they just sort of giggle and walk by. But then the other 30% say, "Hey, I saw one of those," or "This is really interesting," and so.
Oh yeah.
I just always find it. I've done that to fairs and to art and wine walk. I'm going to do a program over here to Houghton Lake in March, and then I see Hale has a winter fest. I'm going to try to get there to sit around and see what I get. So it's always interesting.
The majority of people I ask that say they do believe it's possible.
Sure.
Whether they've had an encounter or not, the majority actually seem to think it's possibly real.
Well, I'd like to agree with you. I think it's more the other way. I think 60% think we're nuts. And the one that's disturbing, I'm much older than you, obviously, Blake.
Not by much.
But I mix with a lot of hunters. I'm a deer hunter and like that. And a lot of the people in my age group, they say, well, I've sat in the woods for 50 years and I've never seen a Bigfoot, so they obviously can't be there, Well,
yeah.
I think that they're not adding in the fact they got to wear blaze orange. Some of them are smoking. They got an established blind. And we're dealing with an animal. It's very smart. And of course, too many of them haven't read a book in 20 or 30 years, and they're proud of it. So,
right.
You put that all together, they're really, if you set in a deer blind, an established blind, you're not going to see a Bigfoot. Although some people have. Some people have had them come up and beat on the blind and stuff like that. It can't happen.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
I think most of the time, like you were saying, they basically have a set routine of what they're already going to do, and most likely they've been doing it for years. So,
Yeah.
um, I know I have a feeling when I go hunting, and some of my research there is that the Sasquatches are hanging out next to the roads or hanging out next to houses where hunters can't shoot at or
Oh,
actually go,
could be.
because you're supposed to be like 450 yards away from a road or any structure and stuff. So
Hmm.
I think that they down here, especially where there's a lot of houses, there's not much wilderness like up north,
Right.
that they hide right up next to people's houses,
Oh, I think
just out
so.
of sight, maybe just out of the backyard, but not where hunters are supposed to be shooting at or actually hunting.
Could be. It's surprising. You even though you drive through metro areas, and there'll be a couple acres here and there where it's swamp. And
Oh yeah,
but yes, maybe some kids go in there once in a while, but I think the potential, if you wanted to hide, you could still do it, even close to metro areas.
yeah,
Our
especially
oldest, our
since
oldest, go ahead.
I was gonna say most of that would be private property, so you would be trespassing if
Right.
a person went on there.
Our oldest son lives on the edge of Columbus, Ohio, which is what 2 million people. 2 years ago, we were on the way to his house, and we had a coyote run across the road. I mean, here's
Oh yeah,
here's an animal that shouldn't be by people, but he's hiding amongst the houses somehow.
yeah. I think there was some sightings of Bigfoot in Detroit in some of the
Yeah.
rundown neighborhoods
Yep.
and on the outskirts.
Yep.
I also know they got wild dog problems or
Sure.
feral dogs
Sure.
that have made packs, and they're running around there too, and they got coyotes
Sure. Yeah.
and at nighttime. My experience, I've been doing this since I was 13 and 29 right now. I've gone out by myself at night a lot,
Hmm.
and the landscape is completely different, especially down here. I mean, no one goes outside after dark, after 10.
True.
Everyone's watching TV. They're not jumping through the woods, and you can easily pass between houses and from one cornfield to another, to one section of woods to another without ever being seen,
Right.
and only hiding out during the day.
I think that's one of the things that people don't recognize is that these are primarily a nocturnal animal.
Yeah.
10 and 4 in the morning, particularly midnight, that's really the best time to hear them and potentially see them. Although a lot of times they're seen in the headlights of cars, going to and from work and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think the fact that they're willing to move, in the dark, it really isn't something we do. And then sort of I'm watching this new show, Bigfoot, Expedition Bigfoot.
Oh, yep, the new one.
I love to watch these shows, but then they're going around with biggest flashlight they can find. I was in the Army, and they says, you want your head shot off, light a cigarette.
Exactly. You're easily to spot.
These guys going around with a spotlight that you can see 2 miles away, and I think night vision or heat imaging has much more. Of course, it's hard to film. You can't film very well.
No, not unless you got IR light, night vision.
And they're doing a show. They got to be able to see you. So there's
and they got a bunch of people there on the camera crew.
Oh yeah, they got so much support staff. That looks like there's one person. They probably got 6 people hanging behind them. So
right. I've been watching it, and it seems to be just a TV show for the first episodes.
I do enjoy the. It's a lot like some of the other expedition shows. Just seeing the Himalayas there. And
yeah, it's a beautiful place where they're at.
Oh, you see the terrain that the people go through, and the people. That's fun in itself. You don't even have to see a Bigfoot to enjoy that part of it.
And I don't think people realize how easy it is to evade people at night, especially when they have a flashlight.
Right.
There was one time I was in the woods, and I heard some coon hunters with their dogs, and I could see their flashlight, and I got out of the woods way before they ever, spotted me or heard me.
Sure.
But I could see them, a couple hundred yards away coming.
Yeah. I got lost over here at the Rifle River Recreation area there probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I couldn't find the trail. And I said, well, I'm just going to lay down. It was a nice evening. But the ferns are 4 to 5 foot tall. Any animal could just lay down and you could walk within 10 foot of them and you would never see them.
There's been reports of them laying down a lot. It seems like.
Sure. They'll crawl. Actually, there's videos of them crawling.
Yep. People report them on all fours crawling, and
sure.
They seem to just, I'm sure they've evolved to, I wouldn't say blend in, but, they have the patience to stand still.
Sure. Well, I think you just touched on another thing, Blake, that
go ahead.
One of my favorite books is called The Historical Bigfoot. It was written by Chad Armett from Ohio. He went around the country in Canada and collected stories of Bigfoot encounters from the 1800s. And, newspaper articles. I went through and sort of did a chart of it. 50% of the time, those Bigfoot that were probably Bigfoot were both bipedal and quadrupeds. You look at the physiology of a Bigfoot. A lot of times they're leaning forward. They got long arms. They got big shoulders to support their upper body if they go to all four. In, like say, many of those cases, they went from 2 feet to 4 feet and back again just in an instant. In fact, there's many cases where that's the case. And so if you go from an 8 foot tall animal to a 4 foot tall animal, you're going to be a lot more hidden.
That's right. That is exactly right. I was about to just say that.
Oh, it goes way down when you're walking on 4 feet. So, and I think a lot of people don't realize, that they do actually are quadrupeds, much like an ape, actually.
I think so. And I've heard that they, belly crawl and.
Sure. If they want belly height, they can do it. Yeah.
Well, they've probably been doing it for however long, and they, probably adapted to do it. Like I said, I think they got the most best patience out of anything living in the world.
Sure.
Where they, basically evolved sitting in the woods and observing everything.
That's right.
That's how they can spot trail cameras and everything out of the ordinary, because all they do is observe stuff.
Yep.
That's a lot of time to think about everything around you.
Actually, the one writer I know, like his name was Noel from British Columbia, claims that they may have a sort of what is it that kids often have? Can have. Forgetting the name of it. It's where they're fixed. They have trouble with school because they do robotic type of things.
ADHD.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there's a better name for it. But anyhow, that they can concentrate because that's the way they're wired.
Right. They have. It's the opposite of ADHD. It would be extreme focusing and.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think they just observe stuff for over the years so much that they evolved to have patience and evolved to just sit still because it obviously works for them.
Well, you think about it, they don't have TV to watch and they don't have books to read,
Exactly.
They got a lot of time to sit and think. So.
And it's probably why they have intelligence, because they are sitting there thinking, using their mind a lot.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
I prefer TV and books myself, but
it is entertaining. And another thing is, when you're out in the woods or you're hunting, you're spotting movement. You're trying to find something moving.
Right.
So if you're in the woods and nothing's moving, you kind of glance around and you keep going and moving until you find something that's moved. So it's pretty. I mean, it's almost simple. It's like it's too simple for them.
Yeah, we got a phone call here.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
My wife's getting it.
It's all good.
Okay. Yeah, it's been really interesting, Blake. I'm amazed myself that we've got 116 incidents here. I found 2 structures myself this year, and it just amazes me that I find stuff like that, and it's really been an interesting study. I just when people walk by at a booth and look like they're ashamed for you, I say, well, what do you mean? I'm having too much fun here.
It is fun, and
fun. We're dealing with a mystery. We're talking probably the biggest mystery that we've almost ever dealt with, and then you can get into paranormal. I'm not a big paranormal person, but 2 years ago I saw an orb. 3 of us saw an orb. And, I just can't explain what.
This was out in the woods?
It was a swamp. We have an area up here near Luzerne. The lady has and some acreage with a very shallow lake. And we were there because, a neighbor lady saw a Bigfoot, and we've had various activities. And we had a sort of a campfire there. And she got this old barn, and 3 of us walked down, and here was an orb out there over the lake. I initially assumed, because I had followed the other 2 guys, that it was them out there on a deck with a flashlight. Well, there is no deck, and here this was bigger. This was a bigger light than a basketball, and it went out just like turning off a light. Well, that can't be swamp gas, and.
Yeah, you always hear about the swamp gas, but
it just doesn't fit. You look it up, and it's just no comparison to what we saw.
Right. It never makes real sense about. I mean, I've never looked up for videos, but I've never seen a video of swamp gas.
Well, you can Google.
I'm sure you could look it up, but
you can Google it, but it's not what we saw. No way.
Right.
And like I say, I'm not big into paranormal, but I think certainly a lot of Bigfooters are thinking there's a connection. So,
I mean, I've had experience with another cryptid I called the Stick Man. Do you think there's any other cryptids roaming around here in Michigan?
I really haven't gotten reports like that. Certainly this Wolf Man and like that. And the reports I've gotten have been certainly a Bigfoot type activities. I will say that if I kept track of them, I probably would have had more mountain lion and UFO reports than I have Bigfoot. But I haven't kept track of those. But
actually, the mountain lion reports would be pretty significant, since they're not supposed to be here in Michigan.
Not supposed to be here either. So how do you but there's been a lot of people see mountain lions, and actually around here now we're getting more reports of wolves even. So,
yeah, that's what I hear. They're moving down.
Yeah, so we do have a lot of wild country. Really more than I hunt, and I hunt downstate the first 2-3 days of the season, then come up here. Shoot 3 days, 4 days after the season starts, there's nobody in the woods. I won't hardly see any other hunters. I said, where'd everybody go? They must have all been here the first day of the season, much like I do downstate and hunt with my brothers and nephews. But it's almost a 1 or 2 day event for a lot of people. And
basically, the 2 weeks of gun season.
What's that?
Just basically, people are mostly in the woods for the 2 weeks of gun season.
Well, if they're even that long, a
right.
lot of people just hunt for a day or two and they're gone.
Right.
They can only get a day or two off from work, and so they can only hunt a little bit. So, I'm amazed how few people are out in the woods within 3 or 4 days after season.
Exactly. And that's the only time I find a lot of people go in the woods is only during deer season, unless they're actively hiking or doing other activities. But I
think I think you mentioned, Blake, that I'm a pilot, and I fly over, and we got so much woods and swamp, and
I've seen some of your videos. It's beautiful.
Oh, have you? Yeah, thank you. But it's really amazing how much. A lot of even privately owned properties. People have 80 acres. I have a house. They might have several blinds, but the only time they visit them is, the week or two before season, maybe bow hunting. But for the most part, that ground is property is not nobody's there, So
Yeah, I know a few people like that. They
yeah,
got a chunk of woods, and the only time they're in the woods is unless they're doing a chore or deer hunting,
doing a little bit of scouting or deer hunting. Yeah,
and that's you
yep.
know, let's say 14 days out of the whole year.
It's not very long. No.
No, that's not long at all.
And
Especially if
and even if they are there, there may not only be two or three of them, and you don't
yep.
really, you're not very populated on particularly like an 80. When you
No,
got two or three people.
I'm sure the Sasquatches observe the houses and learn the routines and habits of the people all year round, so they know during which season the guys in the woods are doing whatever on the property at the particular time.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Do you? I gotta. Do you? When people associate the paranormal with Bigfoot, it makes me think of the Nephilim. Because if you, for right now, I'm separate. I know I think Bigfoot's a flesh and blood animal, but when you start adding all the paranormal aspects that people start talking about, where they cloak or they, disappear and do all sorts of mind speaking stuff, to me, it seems like that wouldn't be a natural evolution, and that would be more, spiritual or possibly demonic. Do you think that they could be the Nephilim, as some people think?
I would think the Esau and the Edomites may have been, they were hill people, and they certainly were giants, could be giants, and there's enough human history that they're very big people, and whether you call them giants or Nephilims or whatever, I think the potential is there. It is interesting that the amount of articles from the 1800s where there was found evidence, skeletons of giants in mounds and whatnot, but then for some reason that evidence, seemed to disappear, and it's
covered up.
We have the articles, but then the people who should have the evidence for some reason doesn't have it. So I'm inclined.
That's right.
I'm inclined to believe the newspapers who printed it myself.
Exactly. And President Abraham Lincoln gave a speech. I think he was in Niagara Falls talking about how the giants gazed upon the same falls as we do now, basically.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah, it's in one of his speeches. I think he's talking about the Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I've always wondered about all those giant skeletons and stuff is some of them were found with like copper armor and copper weapons and jewelry, like where they seem civilized, whereas Bigfoot seems like he's just wild.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And like Lovelock Cave, have you heard that story?
Oh yeah. I just shared that just recently. It was a good YouTube account on that. Yep.
Oh, the Paiute princess who wrote about them said they were cannibals who ate the dead. But in the cave where they found the skeletons, they found like duck decoys, and they found tools and evidence of a more civilized people.
Sure.
Is it? Do you think one possibility of Bigfoot is basically the remnants of that civilization when it got destroyed and they forgot how to make the tools and live how they used to?
I think the potential is there. How are we going to prove it?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like it could be two different things.
Sure.
Because it seems like they are, they wore copper and sometimes bronze armor, and they had axes, and they had,
right,
different jewelries, and it's not at all what people associate with Bigfoot.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whether they're one and the same or not. Certainly red hair all over the body would be more of a Bigfoot type of
right
than some of the giants that were more smooth-skinned like us. So
exactly. Yep.
Would be two different animals or whatever. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any plans for doing like campouts or any expeditions on your own that you're
I haven't
thinking about
really,
doing?
wintertime, isn't very hospitable here,
Right, right. I mean,
particularly if
this year, 2020.
we don't have any particular. We'll probably do some camp outs in conjunction with the conference. We do have a group here that we try to schedule like once a month or so to various areas, and we've done that, and it's been fun. Um, so it's that is the kind of thing though you don't want to unless people really are coming, you don't want to really say where or when too close because then
Yes, yes.
there's a chance they might want to hoax you, and that's just what you need is somebody playing games with you. So if they're interested in the research in this particular area, they might contact me. I do have a Bigfoot committee, and I have about over 40 people on an email list, so they are kept aware of our plans. But even a expedition, even there, will say, "Hey, contact us separately, and we'll set up those plans." Because we may have people on the email list that are not always, they might be in the more of the joking or
Right.
attitude than just interested in conferences stuff. So
So
we do that kind of thing, and it's fun. Set out even at 1 or 2 nights and go to an area that we know there's been activity. It's a fun thing to do.
what is the sort of things you do? Like, do you do any knocks or calls? Like, do you try to get a response from anything?
Yeah, we aren't real sophisticated in that department. We do a little both of those. I've got a whole page of things that you can try, and it just seems like you know it's hard to get much reaction.
Right,
I think a small group is, again, like we talked, is more likely to have some kind of action.
right. I know when I go out, I got my own particular things I like to do that seems to get
Sure.
responses, and
Yeah.
I like to do low whoops, where I project it to like 200 yards and no more than that, and that has gotten me some good responses. Actually,
Good.
I wouldn't say bluff charge, but it dashed towards me when I was 13, and
Oh, really?
yeah,
Interesting.
basically I would go out at night, and this particular night I was parallel in the road next to my property, and I would normally go on my side of the road in those woods to adjust my eyes, but I didn't at that time, so I was parallel in the road to go to the gravel pit, and basically I thought I heard a deer, and I ignored it, and then I made a call, a low whoop, and it busted down off the down the ditch and crossed the road in 3 steps, and it jumped the ditch and landed in some water, and it dashed towards me. It stopped about 20 feet, 30 feet away in some thickets, and I stood there for like 2 minutes. I was scared,
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
but nothing happened. I was waiting for it, but basically I circled around the brush, so I thought I could hear it next to my house, and I got to my house. But ever since then, that low whoop has really seems to get good responses. I've had wood knocks, and
Try that.
yeah, I feel like call blasting is just, it doesn't make sense down here in lower Michigan. There's too many houses. There's too many other things for people they would hear it. Whereas you like low whoop into a small area, it seems to work for me at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We haven't been real successful in getting reaction.
Well, I think well, you have a lot of remote area up there, so I think it's harder for you to unless you like know an area that has a lot of reports and they might be in. It's harder for you guys to come up onto them because there's just so much for them to go.
If there's not a group of them or some of them in the area, yeah, you're talking huge area that
Yeah.
Just stop along the road someplace. There may be none for miles around there. So yes, I agree with you. Very difficult.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I don't get out as much as I'd like to too busy with other stuff, seemed like, and I guess maybe my basic research isn't real good. That I still enjoy the, talking to people who've had experiences, but everybody's got a different way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're doing a great job. I mean, you got a lot of reports cited up there, and you have a lot more sightings than like the BFRO and some of these other websites have for Michigan.
Well, I worked for the government for 26 years and a bank for 9 years, and part of my job, I sort of thought about this lately. Part of my job was interviewing people and trying to document the conversation. And darn if this isn't what I'm doing now. It's basically talking to people, trying to write up a report of what they saw, and that's documentation is so important. So many sightings are totally, it's not documented any place, and that's a mistake. Because if somebody don't write it down, it's gone.
Exactly.
I'd like to expand my YouTube channel, which is Philo News 1.
All right.
I've got a number of videos of interviews. I've got the listing of my reports, and I need to take more of my reports. I got a book now of reports and try to put them in a format where I can put them on the YouTube and the various Bigfoot Facebook pages, and share them. I find that to be a real challenge since I'm not.
It takes a lot of time to do them, especially with all the sightings you got.
Takes time, and you got to know what you're doing. I had quite a revelation here. I was backing up my pictures from, actually it was most of the summer, and I took quite a few videos of the conference in April. No, that was in September, because we had a lot of more of a town hall meeting type thing. Holy mackerel, you put a lot of megabytes on your camera. I got to do something different there, because I don't want to. I filled up 32 gigabytes just from the summer.
Oh yeah, it goes up fast.
I gotta delete a lot more stuff, or do more of a still photo. I'm thinking the still photo, and so people can just read it. It would be less to save, and
oh yeah.
Yeah, that was quite the revelation. I filled up 32 gigabytes.
And trying to store that on like your computer or your phone, that eats up the gigabytes.
Oh my God,
crazy!
I did a number of those interviews there in September, and and then what I've been doing is actually videotaping reports and putting that on the various sites. But then you usually practice. You'll do one or two to see how it's going. And then I wasn't deleting all that. So you just eat up a lot of memory doing that. So
that's right.
That was quite the learning experience. That was just a week or so ago that I was backing up. I thought, oh my goodness, got to do that better.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I got a GoPro 7, and I've been shooting 4K, but that just takes up so much space, and trying to convert that and put it to YouTube, and it's hard on these computers. You got to have a pretty robust computer to be doing all this.
You fill it up, and then you're in trouble. Yep.
Exactly.
That's the other thing. Most of the guys my age really don't respect computers. They didn't have to use it in their work, whereas I did, and that's probably why I'm as good at it as I am. But a lot of guys my age never had to do that, so they think it's all stupid to even do it. So.
Right. It's a great tool to utilize, though.
Oh, it's a changing world. It's amazing.
I know. Most of my evidence used to be on an iPhone, and I got some stuff off of it. I put on Facebook, which I have now. I think I sent you a video of Knox. Mm-hmm. If not, I'll send you it. But
okay.
Mm-hmm. That phone got water damaged, and I had a lot of tree structures and some other wood knock encounters that it's on the phone if I could get it off it, but it's water damaged to
You
where
didn't have it backed up in any way?
nope. And
Oh,
that's where the
boy.
YouTube came. So
Oh,
all my
my.
evidence basically goes straight there.
Got a guy up here to Higgins Lake that claimed he had a Bigfoot video, had one running with a wolf, actually. But unfortunately, he was ice fishing in Higgins Lake, and he dropped it in the lake. Well, Higgins Lake's 150 feet deep.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I think he had some good stuff, but it's gone.
yeah. And that's exactly what happened to me, basically. And it's frustrating when to have, that was like 4 years of this area of research that just completely was gone.
Got to back it up somehow, or yep,
Yeah,
yep.
exactly.
Too many guys lose their phone, and you're it's lost. It's gone. Yep.
Exactly. Well, it's been an hour.
Okay.
I think we'll shut it down here.
Okay. Well, thank
I
you.
think we had a great show. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say? You want to plug in any Facebook groups you got, any pages, or anything else?
Well, I guess I didn't list them. I'm in 4 or 5 different Facebook groups. There just seem to be so many. And particularly when you try to share your account, then you got to share each one individual. And
that's
a lot of time.
Yeah.
But no, I'm like, we do have the West Branch, or it's West Branch Bigfoot Discovery Days .michigan .weebly.com. And that does give us a history, gives you a history of our conferences, the various speakers we've had in the last 6-7 years. But as far as those incidents, they do refer to my YouTube account, which is Phil O News 1. So if anybody wants to see what I've accumulated, my YouTube account is the best. And I do have to say, you have to keep arrowing back, because boy, there's YouTube. They want you to go to everything else. But if you back arrow 3 or 4 times, they finally stay with your stuff. So
I'm definitely going to check that out, and I'm going to subscribe to you too.
Great.
Because I'm always interested in watching stuff on other people's research on YouTube a lot. I see what they're trying to do, what kind of evidence they got, or sightings and reports.
Well, that's sort of a combination. I got several witness reports recorded, and I've got the list of my reports and some of my history. I was fortunate to have visited John Green out in British Columbia before he passed away, and
wow,
and had breakfast with Bob Gimlin, and so I've been at it long enough to accumulate quite a bit of contacts and experience. So
you do, and you have a lot of wealth of knowledge too.
Actually, it's been 12 years now since my wife and I saw the one, and it's just been a fun thing to do. So
it is fun, even just going out in the woods is just fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the best. That's why I like hunting. I just go wandering, and the deer are pretty safe when I'm in the woods, but and the birds, but you always see something different. You never know if you find a burrow or something. Or just recently, here's only 2-3 weeks ago, I found evidence of wild hogs here north of West Branch, which which is hey, you better have a weapon on you. Of course, if you needed one, they might be after you. That's a different ball game there. But we've had them south of West Branch, and I think they pretty much got them. But it was an area half the size of the football field all dug up. So, if I hadn't been out wandering, I would have never found that. So
wow, that's pretty. That's actually a significant discovery too, because
I report it to the DNR. Hopefully, they can take action to.
We got to wipe them out.
Wipe them out. Yep. Yeah.
Will you plug in the Bigfoot conferences and the dates again, so people can look for it?
April 18th. It'll be at the Edwards Township Hall, same as last year. All day. I think we'll probably be charging $25. What we're working on, we're hoping to have like T-shirts, hats, maybe some vests and badges that people could order ahead of time, and then we could order them and deliver them at the conference, so we don't have as much overhead. But we do have Ron Moorhead, Janice Carter, and Eric Altman coming to speak to us twice each other. So I think we're going to have a great conference coming up.
Oh, it is. I mean, last year was great, and the speakers you got lined up this year are great too.
We
So
should have a flyer out hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks where we can get more detail and get that going. Okay.
awesome.
Thanks, Blake, for letting me on.
Yeah, of course, and I would love to have you on again, and I'm gonna try to get some panel discussions going. We'll have more people on here, and
questions, sure.
I would love to have you on for that too.
Okay. Thank you, Blake.
Well, thank you again.
Okay.
You guys have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
All right, guys. Thanks you for watching the show. You can check out more content on the YouTube channel, and I'll always be posting more stuff on the group. And I think the next live show will probably be it might be after Christmas or it might be after the New Year. I'm not sure yet, but I got a few people lined up. So thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy it when you guys ever tune in. So
thank you, Blake.